Okay, everyone, welcome back. We are here learning Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, this beautiful poetic phrase of God creating male and female in his image. And we're going to have a quick look at the Hebrew and some of the meanings and connect them with the English and maybe ask you some questions to make you think a little bit about the grammar and keep unpacking Hebrew words and maybe some of the ideas behind it, building on what we've already learned. So I'm going to take a look here at some of the things that we've already learned and connect it to that. So I'm going to say the Hebrew again, all together with the actions. If you don't have the Hebrew, go back, watch the last video so you really have this Hebrew verse memorized off by heart. It's going to be a great asset for you and also just good fun being able to repeat it. So, how is this verse? Let's do it from the top. Vayivra Elohim את האדם, בצלמו, בצלם, אלוהים ברא אותו, זכר ונקבה ברא אותם. Okay, so my first question is, are there any words that you recognize in this verse that we've already come across? If you've been following this course, verse by verse, class by class, you should be able to respond to that, and maybe have a good listen. Think about some of those words that we maybe have already heard. And if you said Elohim, that's right. We found that in Genesis 1, verse 1. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. So we have Elohim, and we remember that is the word for God. Now, if we look at that, something interesting about that is when you add that im ending. Some of you may have already come across this. This is one of Bible theologians and pastors' favorite thing to point out, the doctrine of the Trinity in the Hebrew word for God, which a lot of Jewish commentators don't really know what to make of. But obviously, as a Christian, you can answer that when it says God. Elohim is translated as God, but the im ending is plural. It means more than one, so it's God's. Now, for us as Christians, we understand that as meaning there's one God, but he has three parts, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so there you find a little bit of the Trinity. So we have Elohim. Now, there's another word in here. If I go back through, remember we learned Bereshit bara. And in this, we have several times bara appearing. So let's go back through it and say it all again. Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam betsalmo betselem Elohim bara oto zachar unkeva bara otam. So, what's the word there that you think maybe you've heard before? That's correct, bara. Bara. And most of the occasions that it appears in this verse are the same. It's just bara, which is the what we call the third person. He created, and that's normally the standard way you would represent a verb in Hebrew in the dictionary in the third person. Bara, bara. But you notice at the beginning we had something, Vayivra Elohim. And so that's slightly different. What do you think it could mean? Is there any differences? Anything there that you recognize? Vayivra. What could that va at the beginning mean? In English, we did so God created man in his own image. In Hebrew, we have this little word right at the beginning, which is added on, and it can be translated as many different things, va. And it is this consonant that we'll come across when we learn the alphabet, va. And it's very interesting because you can translate it several different ways, but mostly you would translate it and. In this case, they've chosen to translate it as so. So God created. And you'll notice it said, so, vayivra Elohim. In English, it's so God created. God created. In Hebrew, it's Vayivra Elohim. It's the other way around because you nearly always put the verb first and then the noun that is doing that verb. And if you have it the other way around, maybe in another occasion we'll come across that. We'll be able to talk about that because the word order doesn't matter too much. It just speaks about emphasis. But the traditional way of doing it is first the verb, then the noun. So we have Vayivra Elohim. So God, He created. So God created. And then we have Et Hadam. Ha'adam. And we notice there we maybe you'll recognize one of the words in that phrase in English, Adam. God created Adam. Now there is one little thing at the beginning of that word that is that mixes it up a little. It's Ha-Adam. Ha-Adam. And we're going to keep looking at that ha and seeing if we can figure out what it might mean as we go through these verses and seeing if it crops up in any other case as we go through. Then we have Betsalmo, Betselem, which is image, in his own image, and then in his image God created. In the image of God He created him. And then I want to just look at this last two phrases, and I want to put them side by side. We had Baraoto, but we also had Baraotam. Baraoto, Baraotam. So you hear a slight difference at the very ending there. And the first one was Baraoto. In the English, we said, God, He created him. Bara, He created. Oto. What could that mean? Oto. At the end, we had bara otam. He created them. So if you said yes, He created him. Oto is him. Otam is them, plural. And so you've heard a couple of different endings there, and you may crop up a few times, and you'll be able to distinguish or recognize that o or am for some of those parts. And then we had zachar unkeva, male and female. Zachar unkeva, male and female. So there we have a few parts there. We've broken that down a little bit. We're starting to analyze some of the words, and so hopefully that's been very useful to you. And we'll continue as we go on to our next verse. We'll learn a little bit more and continue to add Hebrew verses to our repertoire. And so I'll see you in the next video.